Welcome to the Extra Point, filmed at Salt Lake City's beloved Desert Edge Brewery. I'm your host, Andy Brown, and I'm joined here today by former Utah quarterback and Poinsettia Bowl MVP, Jordan Wynn, and former Utah return man and Freedom Bowl MVP, Cal Beck. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. Why are we not the Go for Two show?
Wow, we didn't do a very good job at that last night. You know what I mean? So obviously, tough loss in the Swamp last night. The Utes did drive nearly 70 yards in the last minute and a half of the game, thanks to a very heroic effort by Cam Rising.
Beautiful.
But the Gators stopped the Utes at the 6-yard line on a game-saving interception as they send this Utah football team packing, only yards away from a thrilling victory. First impressions of the game, Jordan Wynn.
Yeah, look, obviously you go down to the Swamp. Tough environment to play in. They're 33 consecutive home openers won. I thought the Utes, they come up a couple plays short. It's never down to one play. It's always a group of plays that contribute to the game going the other way. But obviously, we'd all love to see them pull that one off. But I think they put a lot of good things on tape. And again, as I mentioned on social media, the sky's not falling. It's the first game of the year against a good opponent. In a tough environment, they'll get things figured out. I'm still high on the Utes, very high.
Cal, what are your thoughts?
I think that the sky is not falling Sunday is appropriate. I know that we're all disappointed. We all had our hopes up. But pressure comes as a privilege. And we were privileged enough to be in this situation. The odds were stacked against us playing at Florida, the 33 consecutive streak. I mean, that is decades-long record. That's something that is notable. And we played well. I enjoyed seeing a lot of good things. Of course, us all-star armchair quarterbacks today will have a list long, a Bible list long of things that could have went better. Sure. But that's why we tune into these things and why we don't pad up is because we can see and talk about these things better than we can do them.
So obviously
Well said.
Well said. And on that note, a lot of missed opportunities. We're second and goal in the third quarter. The Gators stuff us on 3 consecutive plays. Near the end of the third period, after a 7-down touchdown by Mekhi Bernard, the Utes botched a 2-point conversion, which ended up being very costly. Jordan, what do you think the Utes need to learn from these key mistakes?
So, I harped on it all last season. I think, it's always about the game within the game, situational football. I know Coach Witt talks about it, everybody talks about it, but for me, it really just comes down to red zone. Florida got into the red zone 3 times and scored 3 touchdowns. The Utes, I think, were in there 4 or 5 times and had the 2 turnovers, the fumble and the interception, and then had to take 3. So for me, that's the takeaway, the negative that needs to get worked on. I think there's a ton of positives to pull away from the game, but if you really want to hone down into one thing, for me, it's red zone. Got to be better in the red zone and got to do a better job defensively in the red zone.
Cal Beck.
I'm going to get the number one excuse out of the way, the humidity. Look, it did cause some problems last night. We saw it. Maybe that's what caused Cam Rising's foot to swell, that he accidentally tripped the running back on the goal line run. It's possible. Maybe the humidity caused the miscommunication on the 2-point conversion when the players ran into each other. I definitely know the humidity was the biggest problem with Whittingham's shirt. As we continue through the game. But now that we have humidity excuse out of the way, I'm going to break it down to fundamentals. I appreciate the focus on the red zone, but that is always a crucial element to any effective and powerful offense. I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit and put a focus on explosive plays. Explosive plays are runs that go over 7 yards, passes that are over 15. We had 3 passes and 2 rushes that were explosive plays. Cam Rising giving some of those runs in himself, which makes me nervous longevity-wise. But you got to produce when you got to produce. On the other side of the ball, the Gators had 2 players that averaged rushing explosive plays, one being the quarterback. We know the difficulty of containing that. And they had 1 average on the rush explosive plays. So that right there, you're talking about plays that extend the sequence and make it more possible that you get into first downs instead of second and mediums, third and shorts, which we ended up coming up a little bit short.
Yeah, I think Will said that's a great stat. I don't know the exact number, but I know when you do have an explosive play on a drive, your chances of scoring go up astronomically. If you have a play over 15 yards, I think your chances of getting points are like 80%. So the ability to create and also take those away are huge, and obviously we're a big part of the game.
I think, we should talk about Anthony Richardson. We were talking about him before the show. He had a great game. threw for 168 yards, rushed, and finished with 11 carries for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. No doubt he was the player of the game last night, and had a very clutch performance. What do you guys think about the Utes' defensive performance against Richardson, containing him or trying to contain him last night?
That was my first time watching him. I think that was his single-digit start. I don't think he started all last season. I think he came in midway through or something like that. But anyway, look, they showed him when he first ran out on the field. Melkai Brezum, the 12th overall prospect in the draft next year. Big kid, 6'4", 6'5", 240 pounds, runs like a 4.3 or 4.4. You saw that on his long touchdown run.
Now, earlier you mentioned Cam Newton.
He's Cam Newton-esque. That's about as close to Cam as you can get, I would say. Man, the guy's electric. I think, watching it from being a Ute fan, he did a great job of taking care of the football. He didn't make the costly mistake. He kept plays alive. He had crucial 3rd and 4th down conversions on their last scoring series. I thought he did a great job. Historically, Utah's defense has a tough time playing against these dual threat guys, mostly because we play so much man coverage. When you're in man coverage, you don't assign a guy for the quarterback, and that's what happens. You'd like to think your front four can stay in their rush lanes and keep them in the pocket, and we lost contain a few times, and he made us pay. He did a good job.
What do you think, Cal?
I think he did a great job of teaching us a couple of fundamental lessons for us to get better moving forward. Number one, his pocket presence and sense is much better than Cam Newton's fashion sense at this point in their career.
Yeah.
He was able to manipulate and buy time. This is a kid that was not pressured at any point that I can remember. And when it looked like pressure, he was making the decision to run. Mm-hmm. He also taught our ends the importance of not getting sucked in and maintaining the containment to hold them in the pocket. And he also taught the rest of the defensive unit why it's important to keep on your feet, aim at the hip, and wrap up and not dive at ankles. He had a great night rushing. Yep. He was a great pocket presence, like I said. He delivered the ball accurately, but he was the leader that Florida wanted to see on that home opener.
Yep.
So I'm going to throw this out there. Play of the game. It's 4th and 3. We've got him beyond the red zone, and we just have to stop him that down. And what happens with Richardson? It's 4th and 3. We're about to score, or we're about to stop them from scoring. That's the game. So I'm saying that my opinion is that's the play of the game. We stop them there. That's probably it. I think
that was the crux. Yeah. That was the crux, and it was. I hate to say I don't like using the term "who wants it more," because everybody wants it more. But the people that were going to win found a way. Right. To make it happen.
Right.
And sometimes you have to produce that in the huddle. You have to produce it as being a leader, or you have to produce it with your feet. And we had plenty of opportunities last night to shut down the game or to go ahead with a lot more momentum, and we just couldn't seem to connect those dots when it was important.
Yeah, I think you go back to the fumble on the 1 yard line, the 2-point play, obviously the last play of the game for the Utah offense. And 4th and 3, any of those could have been the plays of the game, and that's when you get into high caliber games and high pressure moments, again, like Cal said, it is a privilege, which it's a great position to be in, but it comes down to 5 or 6 plays. And you don't know when they're going to be. They might be in the third quarter. They might be in the fourth quarter. They might be the last play of the game. You don't really know. But it's usually those handful of plays that make all the difference. And, Florida made more of them than the Utes did last night.
I appreciate you saying that. We usually look at special teams as that external variable that makes the big difference in these big games. But now that we're seeing the Utes compete on a higher national level on average, we're starting to see that it is 5 or 6 plays on the offensive and defensive side of the ball that end up making those big differences in the momentum swings.
Yep.
I should throw this out there. To add insult to injury for the Utes, they got on their chartered flight last night and sat on the tarmac for 5 hours.
Should be illegal.
So Mr. Bryson Barnes, the backup QB, was slated to join us this morning, but he's still in Florida. So this next segment, we'll do a quick interview with him, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Extra Point. We're here with Bryson Barnes, kind of. He's actually in Gainesville?
Yeah, we're still in Gainesville.
So how are you feeling today? How much sleep did you get last night?
I didn't get a whole lot. I kind of planned on using Sunday to catch up on my homework and have those assignments due on Sunday, but instead I had all night to catch up on it. in the airport because I was like, I ain't got nothing better to do. It was past the point of sleep, and I wasn't even tired anymore. So it was just, well, I guess I might as well just do my homework.
So as we said in the last segment, there were technical difficulties last night. Looks like the team boarded the plane 11:30 last night, and
About 12, about midnight.
about 12. And you guys just sat on the tarmac for 4 hours.
Yep.
You had no hotel to go to. You had no bus, right?
That's exactly what happened. So yeah, we get on there. I got on there about midnight, like I said, and so it takes about an hour for everybody to get loaded on, and then we just kind of sat there. And by the time the pilot had said something about how they're having issues, we're going to be 30 to 40 more minutes. We had already been on there an hour and a half, and so when I heard 30 to 40 minutes, I was like, "You're freaking joking!" I was already like, "We've been here for an hour and a half,"
At 1 in the morning.
And little did I know we were going to be there for 2.5 more hours after that. I was on there from about midnight to 5 o'clock was when we got off.
Did they give you extra pretzels?
No, I think they ran out of snacks. they were
Well,
the ladies were walking by with Gatorades and waters, and we're like, we're hungry.
yeah, I bet. Well, let's talk about this game, Bryson. You have a lot of insight. You're the backup quarterback. You're in constant contact with Coach Witt and Cam. So, we had some questions for you. One of those was obviously the Swamp is a tough place to play. Everyone knows that. It's one of the. I mean, Florida hasn't lost an opener in the Swamp in 33 years. It's the record in the NCAA. So, could you walk through walk the fans through what you guys did to try and simulate the environment in Gainesville?
All right, so yeah, I mean, first off, you have to prepare for the elevation change, and from going from about 5,000 feet in Utah down to basically zero in Florida, there's definitely going to be an elevation change, and with that comes the humidity. I think that was kind of the biggest talk and the biggest hype around going down to Florida was the humidity, and that's realistic. I mean, we get what maybe 10% max on a day in Salt Lake, whereas you come down here, you're pushing 70-80% humidity every day. And the heat is just different. 87 degrees down here is a lot different than 87 degrees in Utah. And so obviously we had to take, necessary steps to prepare us for that humidity. And so, yeah, we used the indoor facility as kind of like a sauna. And it really did work because last night, I mean, obviously having an overcast and having it rain, they say if it rains, it does something to the humidity, makes it less or something. I don't know. And having the overcast definitely helped. But I would say the coaching staff really got us prepared in terms of the humidity because, I mean, it felt like a non-factor last night.
Interesting. What about the noise? Because we're talking about the environment. Obviously, there's the humidity. It's loud. There's 100,000 people in there. How'd you guys prepare for that?
Well, kind of the same thing. We freaking blow crowd noise on the loudspeakers in there, and you practice with that. So I mean, we simulated everything that we were going to be faced with in practice for like 3 weeks straight. So I mean, I would say the things that would be the biggest factors really weren't factors in that game. The crowd noise obviously was legit. Obviously you've heard like some people saying it's the loudest stadium they've ever been in, which I will attest to that. It was extremely loud. But when you come into a game prepared like that, you're prepared for the crowd noise, and you're prepared for the humidity. Those things just become non-factors, and it's just play ball.
So is it tough or complicated to have to prepare for a new staff, meaning like a new scheme, but still watch last year's film, last year's roster essentially to prepare? Is that tough?
Yep. Yeah, it's different is what it is because their defensive coordinator came from Louisiana Lafayette, and they are is it G5 school, I believe is what they are. And so obviously, the guys playing at Louisiana are not the guys we were playing last night. There's definitely a big roster difference in terms of an SEC school to Louisiana. But so you really had to study the schemes that the defensive coordinator was using because those schemes are going to carry over. However, the players executing those schemes are going to be vastly different in terms of the personnel that Florida had. And so what you kind of had to do was you had to focus on the schemes that they were doing, less about the players that Louisiana was doing. and focus on what are they trying to show you. This is what they're trying to do, and then you go and you go, okay, this is what Florida's got. These are their players. These are their starters. You try and match that into those schemes with those type of athletes that Florida had.
What did you think of the performance by Florida's quarterback last night?
I was impressed. I felt like he balled out. He's a big dude. He's an athlete. He was making defenders miss, and being able to be a quarterback and getting outside the pocket, being able to use your legs, but also having a good arm. It's a good combo for a quarterback, and I felt like he definitely used that to his advantage, and I thought he had a good game last night.
Yeah, we certainly had a tough time stopping him. What was the message like after the game to the team?
Man, I don't think it could have been any better, because at the end of the day, this game, it's going to show up as a loss. But I mean, this isn't going to affect us from our main goals. The college football playoff is still realistic, and running it back to the Pac-12 championship is an absolute. So, you heard Coach Witt's interviews. There's no moral victories. It was a team loss. Yes, it sucks, but we're going to learn from this and we're going to get better because of it. And, you can't sit here and hang your head about what could have happened in this game, what could have. At the end of the day, we lost, and we just got to figure out what we screwed up on, our mistakes that we had, and get better each and every week and focus on winning every day and going 1-0 next week.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the consensus out this way too. Is that the message was generally, everyone was disappointed, but Witt seemed pretty positive. People seem to be pretty positive about it, and Florida's a formidable opponent and a formidable environment, and it's obviously no one's won a first game there in 33 years, for a reason. So, so it seemed like there was more production from the run game in the second half last night. Can you tell us what changed?
I just feel like we were just focusing on our technique more. We were really taking in the coaching and the things that we have learned from the first half to apply to the second half. I felt, we didn't get a whole lot of possessions in the first half anyways. And so we weren't able to really kind of get the ball rolling really. Florida was having long drives in the first half, and it really kept our offense off the field. And we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with some administrative penalties with like false starts and stuff like that. And so, that obviously is going to slow down our run game when, you're getting in second and long, third and long situations. You're not gonna run the ball in those situations. So definitely we're airing it out a little bit more, but where we were able to kind of get the ball rolling, get the ball running on the ground. We were kind of getting Florida off the field a little bit. We were also taking up a lot of clock, and that just contributes to the run game. And so I felt like that's why we were able to pick it up in the second half.
How are you feeling moving into the next week's game and the rest of this season as we hit the conference schedule pretty soon?
Oh, yeah, so I feel pretty good about where we're at. Obviously coming off a loss is definitely not. It's obviously not the greatest thing, but there are things to learn in every game, and sometimes whether they're wins or losses, there's always something to learn. And we gotta watch the film from this game, and so we gotta figure out what we need to improve on for next week, and then we'll start focusing on next week's opponent, and then just focusing on them going 1-0 in the preseason, and then we kick off conference play. It's the same mentality. You just got to focus each and every day, win that day, and then go 1-0 that week.
Right, just one game at a time. Well, we wish you safe travels back to Salt Lake. Hopefully, you're not sitting on the tarmac too long. Are you guys coming back tonight, or what's going on?
Yep. We're hoping to get into Salt Lake later this night. So hopefully we don't have another plane issue, man, because I want to be home.
Can't blame you there, Bryson. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll be in touch with you soon. And go Utes.
I appreciate you, man. Go Utes.
Welcome back to The Extra Point. I'm your host, Andy Brown, joined here with Jordan Wynn and Cal Beck. So, question for Cal after this loss, what now?
Yeah, what now? What is the team going through right now? They're looking at the film, obviously, and for those of you that are upset and want consequences to be handed down for a poor display of football, they did sit in the corner and thought about what they did for 5 hours on the tarmac last night.
No doubt.
So we
Yes,
can
sure
move
did.
past that.
Oh, yeah.
So where do we build from here? I mean, we're done pointing fingers. We've got SUU at home next week. We know the energy is going to be high in Rice. It's our home opener. We're going to see a lot of people get some playing time that may not have seen the field last night. And we have to remember the first 3 games is a rotating roster.
Yeah.
Nobody is set in stone as being a starter for the most part. We're going to see a lot more people get some playing time. We may see some schemes change. But I honestly believe, I wanted to ask our guest about this. It's been a tradition that Whittingham does not open the playbook until later in the conference play. And I was curious as to the fact of if there was a circumstance last night where they had a play, but they weren't going to call it because they didn't want to tip their hand for film for the rest of the season. Hence why we didn't go to a 2 tight end set until the second half.
Good point. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously would be very interesting. And yeah, like you said, historically, I think everybody kind of knows that. The playbook's usually a little generic and vanilla early on in the season.
Even against Florida in the swamp, though?
That's why we get to sit here and think about it and talk about it.
Do you sell your principles for the moment?
Here's what I'll say in terms of what now, and to echo what Cal said. Sky's not falling, Ute fans. Let's rewind the clocks to, I think it was mid-October last year. They lose their 3rd game against a good Oregon State team. The sky is falling. It's a rebuilding. What are we doing? Everything, and we end up going to the Rose Bowl and going toe-to-toe with Ohio State. So it was a good first test that we didn't pass. We put good things on film. Continue to grow, continue to build. And again, let's see where we're at in December. And the beauty of having the highest preseason ranking the Utes have ever had, you can afford to stumble and still be, I don't see the Utes dropping out of the top 15 this week. To go to the Swamp and lose by a score with every chance to win it at the end, maybe drop a couple spots, probably like the 12, 13, 14 range is where they fall with the entire schedule in front of them. Plenty of tough games ahead. You have SC, obviously. You have Oregon, UCLA. Plenty of chances to put on film what they actually are. And so you come back at home and put some on tape, win by a lot of points, have a good home opener, see a lot of other guys in action, see what we really have, and continue to build and grow.
What do you think of Kyle Whittingham's presser after the game?
No moral victories was what I took away from it. And the guy is on point, in my opinion. As a program, we've reached the point where we have expectations. Yesterday was an expectation. The remainder of the season is the expectation. That's why it stings, is we all have expectations. But I think overall, Jordan was mentioning earlier, he seemed extremely calm. That could have been leading by example, or him seeing the big picture once again. Yes, it would have been lovely to take away a win coming home from Gainesville yesterday. However, in the big picture of things, in their goals, in the next step in their goals, the conference championship, it may not come into play. So they need to move on.
Cal, did we get what we earned?
Do we get what we earned? Yes, we get what we earned. And I hate to resort to those cliche coaching statements, but it can come down to who wanted it more, who made the plays when it mattered. It is what it is. And I can't specifically say because I haven't seen the investment in the input at practice, if it output what it was, but that's one of the things we love about the game of football and athletics and competition as itself, is we like to believe that those that work the hardest will experience that success. Yesterday it could have come down to minimal, minute variables. We will never know. But I would like to believe that, yeah, we did get what we earned. We did get noticed. We got beat. Now what are we going to earn from here on out?
So as a fan, I have a question for both of you guys. This will be our last question for the day. So last night was the highest attendance ever for any opening game ever played at the Swamp. Over 90,000 screaming fans in the stands. You two have played in some intimidating environments. I know about one with Air Force with you. I remember that story. So as D1 Stars, what's your take on preparing for and ultimately playing in these really tough environments, historic environments even. What's your favorite story? We'll start with Jordan.
I don't know if I have a favorite story. I've obviously played in a couple that were tough. At Oregon in 09 is tough. That place is loud. It's as advertised. You cannot hear a thing. Playing the team down south is a loud environment and hostile. Playing at TCU, playing at Notre Dame in front of 87,000. I mean, these are, it's a lot of people you cannot hear. You can't hear yourself think. You can't communicate. And so it really comes down to preparation. I know Coach Witt has kind of the way he goes about it, how we used to go about it. You head into the indoor and you pump noise into there. You put a loudspeaker right behind the quarterback so they can't talk or hear and scream and you lose your voice, all that good stuff. But until you're really in it and until it's, third down or fourth down with the game on the line and there's that many people screaming, it's obviously hard to simulate. So I don't know if I have a favorite story. I'll tell you this: it's fun. I had a lot of fun going down to Lavelle Edwards, and with the flick of the wrist, you quiet 50, 60,000. I mean, it's a very powerful. It's a very powerful feel. One movement makes a stadium full of adults be really quiet. Those are always fun. But no, it's a privilege to play in those environments and in those situations, and you take it for what it's worth and enjoy it. And you look back, I sit here, it's over 10 years ago now, and they're still fun to think about and enjoy. So I'm sure these guys obviously will look back with a little bit of animosity towards the loss, but I mean, these are things that they'll get to tell their kids one day. I got an opportunity to play in the Swamp. Not many people can get to say that.
I've played there.
I've played there. Not many people get to say these things.
Yeah.
Cal, I know you got stories. Give me a story.
Jordan hit it on the head. It's hard to get the same sensation of wherever you're going to play. Indoor, outdoor, cold, heat, noise. It's impossible. I mean, you look at what happened with the Seattle Seahawks and their crowd, the 12th man.
Yeah.
I mean, they became a known entity because they had such an impact on the visiting teams.
Yeah.
I don't know, pumping in the noise, increasing the heat, shutting the windows.
Yeah.
Forcing them to dehydrate themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much that you could really do besides wearing sweat bags like you're cutting weight for wrestling and then going out and playing 7-on-7.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to play in multiple stadiums that would make some people shake in their boots. Lavelle Edwards not being one of them. No, not intimidating at all. Especially when their fans like to line the tunnel from the bus to the locker room and talk smack 3.5 hours before the game. And then you go out and take the field. And when your name gets announced as the kick returner, 35,000 people boo you. And that was the favorite time of my life, being booed by that 35,000. So in that aspect, it's kind of the military mentality. Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Boot camp's going to suck. Playing on the road's going to suck. How loud do they have to be to impede on your progress and your success? That's the way that I started to look at it. Mm-hmm. And I played in stadiums like the old Jack Murphy Stadium against San Diego State.
Love it.
That was a great stadium. Yeah. We played at Oregon. Playing at Wyoming was not a breeze either.
Sure.
We played at SMU. But I would say the number one at Colorado State on ABC television. I mean, all of those games were high risk, high reward, and they were pressure situations. Yep. But the one that sticks out to me was, and I wrote about it in my Ute journal. I wrote a journal every day I was a Ute. On my 93rd day as a Ute, I put the entrance of when we played at the Air Force Academy. And I've mentioned it before, but there was something about sitting in that locker room, coming off the field pregame, seeing all the cadets, and it being as cool as it looks on TV. Mm-hmm. You're like, wow, this is awesome. Yeah. And you're sitting there, and Luther Ellis is getting us all jacked up and pumped and yelling, and all of a sudden his voice starts to get drowned out by this low rumble hum. And as it approaches, it starts to look like a bad kung fu movie. His lips are moving but not matching the noise that's flooding your ears. And then you realize that it's the B-52 bombers and the fighter planes flying over that are shaking the stadium, and you can't hear anybody, and it literally made us stop our pregame talk.
Dang.
Like we had to stop and wait. And I remember looking around at Jeff Kafusi and Chad Kahaha and Nate Kia, the big dogs, Bronzell Miller, the big dogs, Mark Rexford, like the big dogs on the defense that are not supposed to be scared of anything. Anthony Brown, the left tackle, all of them, Lance Scott. And I could see it in their face. They are not used to being silenced, and that did it immediately. And then we had to get up and walk out on the field to the cadets cheering on the Air Force Academy as they take the field.
Yeah.
Very intimidating.
Yeah.
Very intimidating.
It's interesting, you hear these stories or think back to when you played and try to relay it. Like I tell people, I'm like, could you imagine if at your day job there were 50,000 people hoping that you fail, cheering when you make a mistake, booing when you have success? Could you imagine going in, like I think about, I'm about to run a sales meeting and a bomber flies over before, trying to navigate all those things, again, the privilege of it is amazing and incredible, and that's why you play the game. But it's interesting for people that haven't been in those situations to try and imagine those things. You have a job to do, but there are external factors that are trying everything that they can do to get you to not do your job.
And that's their identity.
That's their job.
The 12th man.
Yeah, that's them. Like they got up that Saturday and said, I want to make Cal Beck fail today.
Yep.
That's their mentality. And to try and relay that to people who haven't been in those environments, it's tricky. It's tough. But that's what you're up against. You go into the swamp, you're up against 90,000 doing the Gator chop and trying to get you to mess up.
Yeah, but you've been in the Coliseum, and Notre Dame.
Well, they weren't a factor in LA. LA fans are.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about that.
Let's take a few minutes to talk about that.
I mean, we've talked about the most sidewalk fan base maybe out there. Can half the fan base even name their starting left guard? Probably not. But hey, when they're on fire, and everybody wants to be a part of it. And it's LA.
They can tell you when they win.
Yep,
and they can tell you they hate UCLA.
It's
Yep,
the
they
fun.
definitely tell you that.
It's the fun thing to do in LA when SC's good. It's the hot thing again, but we'll see.
Well, what I'll say is, Ute fans, there's a lot of football left this season. Like we mentioned last October, we were thinking the season was over.
Yeah, I mean,
think
back to the San Diego State loss last year. Charlie Brewer gets pulled. Here comes Cam Rising. Nobody knows how the season's gonna look. We're 1-2. The sky is definitely falling. We're never gonna get through the Pac-12 schedule. Ended up pretty decently.
Yeah,
so
I would say so,
a couple plays away from beating Ohio State's 3-2 or 3 ranked team. We're a couple plays away from beating them. That's how the season. So hang in. It's a long year.
The last 2 games, less than 6 points.
Yeah. Against Ohio
on the
State
road,
and Florida.
against top tier programs.
Yep.
Even though they're saying Florida's the middle of the pack, I have a feeling we see Florida ascend in the rankings and very quickly this season.
Yeah, I mean with that QB, I mean they'll be solid in that.
And we will bounce back.
Yep.
We will definitely bounce back up in the rankings. I don't see that Utah stumbles much from this. I see the coaching staff circling the wagons as always. They will address the fundamental issues that need to be addressed, and we'll move forward and grow as a team.
I think that was what was interesting about Coach Witt's presser. I think he knows that. After losses, historically, he's pretty critical, or can be, and I thought he was pretty positive coming out of that one. I think that's something to pull from that. Like, he sees the big picture. It's game 1. All the goals, like you mentioned, are still attainable. Every single one of them, including getting to the playoff.
I mean, if people want to worry about something, they should worry about Vanderbilt leading the SEC.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming?
Talk about a wacky place
who
right
saw
now.
that coming?
So.
Well, that's all we've got for today. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for our next podcast. And lastly, we'd like to thank the Desert Edge for letting us film in their beautiful location today. We're very grateful to you. Your beer is awesome.
Great wings, great beer. There's my plug.
I gotta give a shout out to the French onion soup as well.
There we go.
Big fan. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
It's a great day to be a Ute.
Yeah, always.
I'm just gonna look like slightly above it, like I'm staring up. Okay.
So you're going to look at the gray?
Exactly. It's like at the white, actually. Okay. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Yeah. Can you imagine if we did, though? All right. Ready? I'm gonna clap. Yeah. Okay.